Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Nerd to the Third Power, your one-stop shop for all things nerdy and awesome. I'm your host and master of ceremonies, Dr. Gonzo. With me, as always, this epic quest of awesomeness is our resident anime gods, the Cat. Cat, how are you doing?
I am doing okay, guys. I'm doing okay.
All right, and also with us is Skyblaze. Skyblaze, how are you doing?
Everybody in the world is playing Pokemon or Shenmue except me. I am slightly bitter.
Well, do you have time to do that with all the water bailing you have to do over there? I hear you guys have been having a bit of a water problem.
Yeah, it's been raining solidly for about 3 weeks. Half the city centre is underwater. Luckily, I live on a massive hill, so it's not so bad. But yeah, a lot of the major roads are closed. One of the train stations is under 3 feet of water, which is entertaining, I suppose.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. She showed me a picture earlier today of the station, and the water is literally like up to the level of the platform. So now I just have this image in my head of like just this train of gondolas coming through. Gondola to the chapel, governor.
It's Yorkshire, not London, you fool. You've been playing Pokemon Sword and Shield too much, mate.
How the hell would I know what accent everybody has? There's no voice acting.
Because all the accents are written out. It's phonetic.
All right, and Birdman, how are you doing this week?
I just drank out of the fish tank.
You're a weird guy, Birdman.
Didn't see that one coming, did you, fuckers?
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Do you need help? Like, blink twice if you need help.
I'm feeling motherfucking fine.
All right, we got a fun show for you guys this evening. Tonight we are discussing audio dramas, some of our favorite radio plays that we enjoy. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But of course, there's procedure to follow, so we're going to begin, as always, with Ask a Geek, and we got some questions here. First question here, let's see, this one comes from Sheila, and she's got a few questions. First one is to Kat, although I'm also going to open up to Skyblaze because this is something that's in her wheelhouse as well. The question is, I know that you're a big fan of the new She-Ra series. Have you seen the documentary The Power of Grayskull, The History of He-Man? And if so, what did you think of it?
I have not seen this. I've seen the Toys That Made Us and the He-Man as the closest documentary that I've gotten.
Okay, well, I have seen it, and it's great. If you haven't seen it, you really should. Skyblaze, what about you? Have you had a chance to avail yourself of this?
I have seen it. I've not seen the last kind of 10 minutes, because I think I had to go out, and I've not got back to it yet. But yeah, I've seen most of that documentary. It was pretty good. Left some pieces out. There was some of it that was a bit confusing. Yeah, they didn't explain some things all that well. But it wasn't bad.
Okay, and she's got a second question here for me, and that's the question is why I didn't have anything to say about She-Ra in our episode. And I think the thing that a lot of people either don't know or tend to forget is I'm actually the baby of this team. I was born in 1986, so I'm actually the youngest person on this team. So by the time I was old enough to appreciate cartoons, on a conscious level, He-Man was already off the air. Like, I have very vague memories of some of the local affiliates playing the new Adventures of He-Man, the one where he went into space.
I am very sorry. You have my deepest and most profound sympathy.
Also, I raised the bullshit flag to that because you are a year younger than me. Like, we are almost the exact same age. And I still watched it, and I lived in another country, and we didn't watch it on TV. We watched it, if I'm not mistaken, on Laserdisc or VHS.
That's some serious nerd cred right there.
Also,
okay, well, the point is you had a ready supply. I had to go with just what the local TV stations were showing.
I had
we didn't have
one
cable
ready
back
supply.
then.
I had one She-Ra movie ever.
But when I was a real little kid, we didn't have cable. And God, I don't think we got a VCR until I was like 6. I can't remember. Like I said, this is when I was like real little. But like a lot of the stuff that, was real big in the 80s, like, G.I. Joe, He-Man, a lot of that stuff wasn't on my radar because by the time I was old enough to watch cartoons and really appreciate them, they were already off the air. I mean, the only reason Transformers was on my radar was because they were doing the Generation 2 reissue in the early 90s, and they were rerunning they had that repackage of the original 80s cartoon with that weird CGI space cube thing. Look up video of this damn thing on YouTube. It's trippy as hell. Yeah, it's
very weird, and it makes no fucking sense.
No, I'm very much a 90s kid. The stuff that I hold nostalgia for is stuff like, the Nickelodeon stuff. Hey Arnold, Ren and Stimpy, Angry Beavers. So it's not that I hold any particular antipathy to the new She-Ra series. It's just He-Man was never on my radar. So when the new She-Ra series was announced, I was just like, okay, it's a thing. Not my speed, but other people like it, and that's cool.
I've had the same problem.
Need to get into it.
I have the same problem with my husband because he was born in 1987. He's 4 years younger than me, and so I've had to explain a lot of the jokes that are from jokes about the old series or the references to the old series, and he just kind of looks at me when I'm howling with laughter, and he's like, "What?" Well, you see, this is a reference to, and I'm doing the thing that I'm famous for on this show.
Going back to the sandwich.
Yes, you bastard.
So, like I said, it's. I mean, I watched the first couple episodes of the first season, and it just didn't grab me. So that's really why I didn't have anything to say about it on the show, because I mean, I really didn't have anything to contribute because it just didn't hook me. So, but let's see. That's that. Let's see. Next question here. This is one that I'm going to open up to all the gamers in the audience here. This is one that just came in today. With the Game Awards coming up, what is your game of the year for 2019? So, Mike, let's start with you on this one.
I actually filled out the form via Google today. One of my PR people sent out this tweet today about this. Game of the year, there are going to be 3 nominees from me, or at least 3 votes that I would hand out. I would give it to the Resident Evil 2 remake. Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Design is wonderful. It's a great Soulsborne game. Solid game, but I can appreciate it. And this one, I think is going to win simply because it's so weird, but it wasn't nominated for Game of the Year. Untitled Goose Game. Because that game is so much fucking fun. It's so stupid. I love it. And underappreciated indie gem. If you get a chance to play this, it's on the Switch and it's on Steam. And I think it may be on other platforms. Yeah, it's on Xbox Game Pass too, I think. My Friend Pedro is weird, but it's really fun. You basically have a talking banana who's named Pedro, and you fight in bullet time like The Matrix meets John Wick. And it's puzzle shooting. It's really weird, but it's a lot of fun. So yeah, those would be the ones I'd pick. Lesser extents this year. I'm trying to think of other games that were half-assed. Honestly, some of the best multiplayer I've played this year is Call of Duty. Because I really like how they've updated the engine, boots on the ground. It feels really good. Time to kill is great. They've do have some balancing issues, mostly with the 725 shotgun, which got another nerf today. And although the sleeper hit is Apex Legends, which was done by Respawn, the same guys who did the Titanfall series, and the same guys who just released Jedi Fallen Order. So those would be my picks out of the hop. But yeah, we'll have to see how it all shakes down in early December.
All right, Skyblaze, what about you? What's your personal game of the year?
It's a bit of a tough one. There's been quite a lot of really good games. There's been a bit of a late entry, actually. The 2 that have really impressed me very recently have been The Outer Worlds, which is basically Fallout New Vegas in space, only without the horrendous number of bugs and things that don't work, which is a bit weird. And a really, really strange one, Disco Elysium, which is imagine a 1970s American cop drama set in a alternate steampunk version of the 1970s, written and produced by David Lynch, and that's pretty much how I can best sum it up. It's very, very weird, but it's also one of the best written games I've ever played. The writing is absolutely top notch. I can't get over how good the writing is.
Okay, all right. Well, let's see. For me, top 5 so far. Bearing in mind that my list is always pulled from games that I've actually played. So my top 5, going from bottom to top: Resident Evil 2 remake. Let's see. River City Girls. It's a kind of sequel to River City Ransom. Nice throwback to the old school beat 'em ups. Absolutely crazy presentation and a killer soundtrack. Link's Awakening remake, always tons of fun. Let's see. Number 2. Number 2 is a tough one. Because I know what my number 1 is. No, the number 2 is Astral Chain. That was a game that's also my biggest surprise. I did not expect to like that game as much as I did, and I absolutely wound up loving it. And Game of the Year, Fire Emblem Three Houses. Absolutely love that game. And has one of the best written stories I've ever experienced in an RPG ever. And I still have 2 other playthroughs I have to go through. Blue Lions for life! But yeah, so that's my Game of the Year. Fire Emblem Three Houses. Biggest disappointment? Kingdom Hearts 3. I wanted to love that game so much, but I couldn't get into it. It just... You ever play a game that just gets in its own way?
Yeah. A lot of the times.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3 was one of those. It's just like I got 3 hours into it, and I felt like I was being interrupted every 2 minutes for some new mechanic that I just couldn't keep track of. The story was the recap they put in was not enough to bring me up to speed on what I needed to know. I think the point where I started checking out was they revealed that there was this super special Ultra Keyblade that was called, wait for it, the Keyblade. And I was like, really? That's the best name you can come up with? Okay. Yeah.
It's
by
partially it's partially a translation problem, because the glyph that they use can actually also be pronounced as chi. So
yeah.
Fans occasionally do refer to it as the Chi Blade rather than Keyblade.
Yeah, but XI isn't pronounced that way. But yeah, so it's just I don't know. Maybe I'll go back and give it another shot. But I couldn't get into it. The Toy Story world was fun, though. I will say that. I had a blast with that, but then I got into the Tangled world, and I'm just like, why am I here? But anyway, let's see.
The couple of kind of lesser-known gems that are worth checking out. Cat Quest 2 came out on the... I know it's out on the Switch. I think it's out on the PC as well, on Steam. That's great if you want a fairly simple, old-school Legend of Zelda-y type RPG. And SteamWorld Quest, the Hand of Gilgamesh, also on Switch. It's a very short, kind of card-based RPG, but it's really, really fun. I had lots of fun playing. So those are worth checking.
Okay. And our last question here, let's see. This one comes from Megan, and she asks all of us, what are we most looking forward to in 2020? So, Kat, let's start with you. What is the movie, book, whatever that you're most looking forward to in 2020?
Oh, God, I can't think that far ahead. I mean, there's got to be something, right? Another Marvel movie.
Black Widow. Falcon Soldier.
I wish I was looking forward to Black Widow, but I'm not.
It's kind of hard to get invested in that after knowing what happens to an Endgame, isn't it?
It's really just that, like, I don't know anything about it, so I'm like, okay, whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming out on Disney Plus that I'll be interested in. But honest to God, I'm just trying to survive this year. I know there's stuff coming out next year that's going to be exciting, but honestly, like, I'm just trying to make it there.
All right, fair enough. Mike, what about you? What are you looking forward to in 2020?
Two things. Definitely looking forward to the Final Fantasy remake in March. That'll be exciting to play, even though it's only the first part of however many games. Although the big one I'm looking forward to, because I just reviewed the role-playing game from R. Talsorian, Cyberpunk 2077. That will likely be one of the best games of this generation. If The Witcher 3 was any indication of the quality that CD Projekt Red can put out, it's going to be fucking awesome, dude. I went reading the role-playing game this past weekend, reading the world of Cyberpunk, and it's so much more intense than, say, something like, say, Shadowrun is, which is another Cyberpunk role-playing game. I like the world a little bit better, almost, in some ways, than Shadowrun, and that's a radical departure from my thinking of previous years. So yeah, Cyberpunk's something really, really looking forward to. Falcon Winter Soldier, when that comes out next fall. Black Widow I'm looking forward to, because I love the villain Taskmaster. He's always been one of my favorite bad guys, because I think it's awesome. He has a sword and shield, and he looks like a skull. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm looking forward to.
All right, Skyblaze, what about you? What are you looking forward to in 2020?
Oh, wow, let's see. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Assuming that it does come out, Beyond Good and Evil 2. I'm looking forward to actually playing Persona 5 Royal in English. That would be nice. Assuming that it's not another lie, Phantasy Star Online 2. Also in English. It's only taken you like 10 years. Not that I'm bitter or anything. Which. Whenever System Shock comes out, that's supposed to be isn't that 2020?
I have no idea. Like, are you talking about System Shock 3?
No, the remake.
Okay, well, I haven't heard anything about the remake, and I haven't heard anything about System Shock 3 either. Like, they put out the trailer and then, like, nothing.
And then it disappeared. Yeah, there were some films as well, but I can't think of what they were. My brain is melting. It's quite late here.
Well, let's see. As far as me, things I'm looking forward to, like Mike mentioned, the Final Fantasy VII remake. I'm also looking forward to Persona 5 Royal. Also, Persona 5 Scramble, which I'm eagerly anticipating. Let's see. Other things that I'm looking forward to. Of course, the second round of the Smash Brothers Ultimate Fighters Pass. Eager to see who the next 5 fighters are going to be. And let's see. Outside of games, I'm really interested in the Netflix Witcher series. Because I started playing The Witcher 3 on the Switch and got really into that universe, so I'm kind of interested to see what they do with that mythos in the Netflix series. As I understand it, they're basing the Netflix series more on the books than the games. So that'll be.
The series comes out next month, right?
Well, I mean, we've already set a rotation, so that doesn't do me any good right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and you have no idea how busy my holidays would be. I'm probably not going to be able to watch TV again until like February.
I know that feeling. Oh God, do I ever?
Yeah. So yeah, looking forward to that. So yeah, that's pretty much what we're looking forward to in 2020, and that's pretty much all the time that we have for Ask a Geek this episode. Thank you as always for sending them in. You can send them to us through the email at drgonzo@nerd of the third power. Love getting your questions. Love reading them on the air. So go ahead and get your questions in. You just might get yourself on the show. And so, with that, we are going to jump right into the meat of our episode with our discussion topic for tonight, which is audio dramas and radio plays. Something that has a long and rich history, and surprisingly is still around in a big way in the modern age. So, yeah, this is going to be kind of interesting discussion. Talk about some radio plays that we listen to that we absolutely love and adore. So, and kind of, why do we enjoy these things so much? So, Skyblaze, I think we're going to just go ahead and start with you on this one, because I have a pretty good idea of what you're going to talk about. So why don't you tell us about a particular radio play series that you're big into?
Well, how I really got into listening to audio dramas and radio plays was because Big Finish exists. For those that don't know, Big Finish are a company in the UK that started off by producing audio dramas for Doctor Who. And they did actually manage to get several of the actors, including some of the previous Doctors in, to reprise their roles, and some of the previous companions. And they got some of the writers who have been producing books for Doctor Who for many years. And these things, they started off by selling them, I think they were selling them mail order originally. And they just grew kind of, they mushroomed in popularity. And it became, well, first of all, one of the best ways to get a real grip on the character of Paul McGann's Eighth Doctor. He actually continued his adventures after the TV movie, to the point where it's actually sort of canon now. But I'll go into that later. And also widely credited with pretty much redeeming the character of Colin Baker's Sixth Doctor and actually giving him really good stories and letting his ability as an actor shine. And yeah, I started listening to them because I picked up a few of the CDs at conventions and got really hooked on them. And then I was lucky enough to share a house with a guy who actually had a subscription to Big Finish, so I was kind of doomed from then. These days, I just download them from the Big Finish website, but yeah, that's how I got started there. And these days, Big Finish actually do more than just Doctor Who. They've got a whole bunch of stuff. They've done Blake 7, they've done Highlander, they've done Sapphire and Steel, which is another British genre series. And there's a whole bunch of different things that they've done. But they're still most famous for Doctor Who, and they are still being made.
Yeah, I got real big into Doctor Who during that phase that Skyblaze loves to poke at me for, where I got obsessed with Doctor Who for a while. And at the time, I was delivering pizzas, so I just, I hoisted the colors and downloaded the whole collection of Big Finish audio dramas up to that point, put them on my iPod, and was listening to them in my car as I was running deliveries. And I was just amazed by the quality of the stories, especially, like you said, the 6th and 8th Doctor stories. The 8th Doctor stories actually became my favorite, especially the ones with, I think Charlie was her name?
Yeah, Charlie, his first Big Finish companion.
Yeah, of his first companion. She got her own series later on down the line, though, didn't she?
Yeah, she did.
Her own little spinoff? Yeah.
She's also, her actress is actually, super nice. She was at a convention a few years ago, and she was talking about when she first joined Big Finish. She was actually a huge Paul McGann fan, and was a big fan of a film he was in called With an Ale and I, which is really popular among students. It's one of those films where everybody quotes it, and she accidentally quoted a thing from With an Ale and I in his presence, and then was super embarrassed. I was like, oh no, he's going to think I'm a crazy fangirl. But he just did the next line, and everyone laughed, and it was all fine.
So, but the first audio drama that I ever actually listened to was actually the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That was another property that I got really obsessed with for a while, and which Kat will attest to, because she had to endure me in that phase, actually in person, because that was while we were in college together.
Ah, the dark times.
Yes. Yeah. So, but now you mentioned something about the Big Finish Doctor Who ones becoming somewhat canon. How did that happen?
Mm-hmm. Well, it transpires that Russell T Davies and several of the other writers who came on when the series was revived in 2005 were fans of the Big Finish show, and so several had actually like Rob Shearman had actually worked for Big Finish and done stories for Big Finish. And some of the Big Finish stories were actually adapted for TV. Dalek was actually adapted from a Big Finish story called Jubilee. And then when it rolled around to the 50th anniversary, and there was the short that had Paul McGann in it that showed the Eighth Doctor regenerating into the War Doctor. At the moment where Paul McGann's Doctor lifts the chalice that will regenerate him into his next incarnation, and he does the I salute all of his previous companions. The companions he talks about Charlie and Kerry's and the companions that are from the Big Finish audios. At which point, all of the Doctor Who side of Twitter just melted down and went, Big Finish is canon now! There was like so much peace matter, like on my Twitter feed with people just going absolutely ballistic. It was hilarious, including several of the writers. Paul Cornell did like 10 tweets in a row, going, "Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!"
Yeah, because the BBC usually likes to kind of like go, okay, Big Finish is over here, and the TV series is over here, and there the twain shall meet, aren't they?
Yep. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. All right. So, okay. So yeah, but yeah, I can definitely attest the quality of the Big Finish stories, and they're definitely worth looking into. Kat, you also listen to a few radio plays, don't you?
I see. The reason why this was my topic, I wanted to talk about this, is because I've recently, we've been podcasting for like 10 years now, but I don't actually listen to podcasts except in like the last year. And I've listened to like documentary kind of podcasts, and just in the last like 6 months or so, maybe even less, I've really gotten into like audio drama podcasts. And so I'm really fascinated by how the physical media itself has changed, like how this went from we started, radio plays as things you'd listen to on the radio, and then you were talking about Big Finish being like a mail to your home kind of thing, and now we have podcasts. And I think that this is such a interesting platform because obviously podcasts like let idiots like us just talk about anything we want, and like 3 of you listen, and that's really awesome.
Thank you 3, by the way. You know who you are.
You're our favorite. But to me, it's really interesting that whereas the medium previously, in order to get onto the radio, there was a lot of censorship involved, and there's all kinds of stuff that went into it that doesn't go into it anymore. So you can have a radio drama or an audio drama about anything you want. And that has led, I think, I haven't listened to all of them, but I think that's led to, a lot of bad podcasts that are radio dramas, but also a lot of really good podcasts that don't fall into the normal kinds of categories that we might see, or just, it's taking storytelling to a more accessible place, I think, because anybody can just go on to the internet and listen to these podcasts and glean stories that they would never have the chance to see on television or hear on the radio. We're living on the internet now. So I've been getting heavily into a lot of different really good stories that honestly, I got through Critical Role because I follow a lot of artists.
Why am I not surprised?
Well, listen, okay? I follow a lot of artists on Twitter, and apparently the same crowd that likes Critical Role likes a lot of podcasts. So I would see them post art, and I'd be like, I don't know what this is, but this art's really cool looking. And one day I was like, well, everyone keeps posting from this thing called the Magnus Archives. So I'm going to go blindly with no information on it at all. Not even like how many episodes it was. Just blindly dip my feet into those waters and was hooked instantaneously. And if you've never listened to the Magnus Archives, it is a horror podcast. And I don't actually like horror, but I was immediately hooked on this series. It's the story of a guy. He works for a place called the Magnus Institute, which it's a fake place, and they study the paranormal. And he becomes the head archivist of the Institute. And he's taking old statements that were submitted by people who want stuff researched, and he's putting them to tape, because tape is the only thing that can actually record these weird stories. They won't go digitally for some reason. And so it's just him reading scary stories, and then slowly but surely it becomes less of a I'm sitting here reading statements, and it becomes more of an audio drama with characters coming in and interrupting him, and then there's lots of plot that ends up happening, and it turns into this huge world building experience with lots of danger and action and all this other stuff, and it's so great. And also now I need to take a trip to England so that I can go tour all of the places that are brought up in this podcast because they're all English, and it's gonna hurt my wallet, but I really want to do this now. But
I probably know some of them, so I can probably help you though.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to it, you will be like, I've been there. I know where that is.
Probably.
So this sucked me in, like nothing I've ever experienced, into the concept of audio dramas, because I've never really been in that headspace before. Like, I've never really preferred to listening to podcasts over watching TV. It's just never been there for me. But it's really easy for me to listen to podcasts at work. So listening to these audio dramas while I'm at work and, just doing busy work became very, very easy. And I think that's part of what is so appealing about it, is that, like you said, you were driving and listening to it, and I can do it while I'm working. It's so very accessible.
Okay. All right.
It's one of the nice things about, because I suffer from persistent chronic headaches and migraines. And there is literally like nothing I can do physically when I have a migraine except lay there in the dark. But I can, if I turn the volume right down, I can listen to audio dramas. So having a bunch of Big Finish audios on my Kindle Fire is how I cope with having a migraine without going screamingly insane.
Okay. Birdman, you've been quiet. Are there any audio plays or radio dramas that you like to listen to?
Not so much, actually. I mean, I've listened to a couple audio books. I've more produced these things than I have actually listened to them. If I had to name two favorites, it's kind of cliche, but it kind of kickstarted it all. The War of the Worlds by Orson Welles, way back in the 1930s. Fantastically presented, acted, and, well, it fooled a bunch of people. So the power of media and compelling storytelling. A more contemporary example, however, would be a wonderfully assembled cast of World War Z, which is a sort of a collection of short stories read by an all-star cast, including Mark Hamill, Alan Alda, etc., talking about the zombie virus that attacks the world and how they kind of deal with it. And it goes in some pretty dark directions.
Yeah, that was amazing. That's another one that I listened to. Okay, so for those who only know World War Z from the movie, first off, we are very sorry.
Oh God, yes.
Second off, the original book has a very unique narrative structure. It's not told as one continuous story, but as a series of after-action interviews with people recounting their experiences during the war. So in this audio play that Birdman's referring to, they got a different actor for each character recounting these stories. And it was phenomenally put together. The selling point for me was Alan Alda, because I'm a huge fucking MASH fan. But then when I recognized Mark Hamill in there, I was like, oh, hey, it's the Joker.
Yeah, I mean, I first got into it. I was interviewing Max Brooks at a Toronto Fan Expo a number of years ago, probably at least a decade now. And he was telling me before the interview about the audio drama. So I downloaded it on my then iPod, and I just had a wonderful experience with it because I listened to it going on a bus ride down to Texas, I think it was, and that's a 37-hour bus ride that you don't want to do, but it's fun. Then the other audio dramas that I like, I've listened to some of the Big Finish stuff. I listened to the Dresden Files, which are really, really cool. But like I said, most of my experience comes from producing these. As many of you know, I went to college for radio, television, and film in my second year of where I did my stream I was going to go into. I went to radio presentation at Niagara College. We had to produce a 15-minute audio drama. And I produced one called Wrong Guy, Wrong Time, where I basically took the cast of the idea behind Die Hard and inserted my friend Dave into it, and I put as many 80s and 90s cliches into it as I possibly could. And creating an audio drama is not as simple as, here, we're gonna read out a script, because you have to fill it with ambient room noise, you have to fill it with sound effects, you have to say what the person's doing, because in essence, if it was that simple, you could just rip the audio from a movie and say, oh, that's an audio drama. No, it's not. It's very distinct, because certain language has to be conveyed in the script to say, oh, hey, I see you're walking over there, or something like. It's just little things that don't seem innocuous, but in an audio drama, they're absolutely essential to set the theater of the mind. So,
you know what? It's actually a really good example of this. If you want to get, if you don't know what he's talking about, but you want to get a real clear-cut example of this, there were actually a pair of radio dramas for the first two Star Wars movies, A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back, full radio plays, and they had to use a lot of these radio tropes in order to make it work. So there's a lot of this, hey, come over here, or who's that over there across the street, or people visually describing, verbally describing what's going on, and yet still actually making a compelling
24-foot monster with yellow spikes and knobbly knees coming towards us.
Not that cheesy. It's actually still really well acted. But there's also a lot of extra story material in there that actually is considered canon, but adds extra context to the overall story. Like, there's a whole episode dedicated to Princess Leia before her doomed mission to grab the Death Star plans, and her life on Alderaan, and establishing her relationship with her father and her relationship to the planet, and how she wound up getting involved in this mission in the first place. So if you want a real good radio play to kind of illustrate some of the stuff that Birdman's talking about here, check those out, the Star Wars radio dramas.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot that kind of goes into it. And to give you an example, while we were producing Wrong Guy, Wrong Time, we used a nonlinear editing program known as Cool Edit, Cool Edit 2.0, which at the time was pretty cool, but now you would know it as Pro Tools. And each layer, or each track, is an audio layer. So you could put music on one track, sound effects on another. At one point, we have a gun battle with Jean-Claude Van Damme, a SWAT team, versus a bunch of French Quebec terrorists happening inside of a bank.
Or as we call it in Dundalk, Friday night.
Yes, so it was ridiculous. So at one point, this 30-second sequence in the audio drama had 300 different layers. Because we were layering sound effects, room tone, and one of the cool things you can do with this, if you're really into it, you really want to create an experience for sound setups. We had sounds travel around the room. So if a cop, for example, is shooting on the left channel, we'd have the bullet travel and ricochet on the right channel. So you could create these audio experiences. And that's something that you can do with an audio drama if you really want to punch it up, because now we have audio that's not just stereo. We have 5.1, we have 5.2, we have 7.1, 7.2, and you can play with these virtual audio spaces and really create stuff that's theatrical level, if you want to get really kind of technical with it. But again, that's great if it sounds neat, but if you don't have a powerful script, it's B-movie crap. So yeah, that's what I got for you.
Yeah. Well, as for me, like I mentioned earlier briefly, the first big radio drama that I really got into was The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which, fun fact, that's actually the original form of the Hitchhiker's Guide story.
Yep.
The book actually came after the radio play, and I think actually after the TV series too. I'm not too sure about the sequence of events there. But
From what I understand, it was the radio series, the first book, and then TV series, and Douglas Adams was writing the other books while he was working on the TV series, I think.
Okay. Well, I mean, the history of the story of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is as complicated as its narrative.
Yep.
So, but I discovered that right about the same time actually the last movie was announced. And I got real super excited about that. So that's when I discovered the books and then the radio play, and I was kind of Hitchhiker's Guide obsessed for a while. But it's fascinating to see how the Hitchhiker's Guide story evolved from its origins, because the books and the radio plays eventually take wildly different spins after the events of the third book. And it's interesting to see how this property that ostensibly is telling the same story goes in just wildly different directions, which I'm sure Douglas Adams would have had no other way.
Yeah, partially because Douglas Adams went into a fairly deep depression around circa the time the fourth book was being written. And then, like, absolutely crashed when it came to writing the fifth book, which is why it's so damn depressing.
Yeah.
He was writing another book that was gonna, because he was like, I went too far there, and was writing another book that was gonna fix some of the stuff from the fifth book, but died before he could finish.
Yeah.
Whoops.
So, but that was one that I really enjoyed. And then there was this is one that might be up Cat's alley, but it's something I only ever found once, and I've never been able to find it again. But I think I mentioned this before. But for the last 2 years of high school, I actually went to a boarding school in Virginia. It was in a podunk little town in the middle of nowhere called Newmarket, Virginia. The whole town is literally just a street of antique stores and one bookstore, and that's where I spent most of my free time. Well, they had an audio cassette section there where people would kind of trade in like old audio cassettes, and I found in that little section there an audio play of The Hobbit, not an audio book, a fully acted audio play. And I bought it, and I ran the tape out until it finally wore itself out, and I've never been able to find it since. But I remember it was superbly well acted. It came on 8 cassettes because it was the whole story on a complete. There was no material cut. I mean, obviously it wasn't like, it was abridged in the sense that you didn't have Tolkien's narration, but like all the dialogue was true to the book. It was superbly well acted. So if anybody out there knows what I'm talking about and can point me to a digital archive of it, I would.
Sure it's not the BBC radio adaptation?
I don't know what it was. Like I said, this is back when I was in high school. So, and when I bought it, it just came in this unmarked case, and I don't have the cassette anymore, so I couldn't look at the logos on it and tell you.
Right, I've just sent you a link. See if it's that. So, yeah, I might have found it for you, because I know that there was a BBC Radio one produced, so it might be that one.
This is it. Yeah, this is it. This is it
You're
exactly.
welcome.
Oh my God, I now promise you my firstborn. But yes, this is it exactly. Yeah, this. Oh God, I must have listened to this 100 times when I was in high school and early college. But like, I absolutely loved this radio play. So I guess sort of the question that I want to ask now we've listed some of our favorites is, radio plays are something that has been around since radio has existed. I mean, you had stuff like The Shadow or the old Superman radio plays from back in like the 1920s and the 30s.
Flash Gordon.
Flash Gordon, yeah, or Burns, George Burns and Gracie Allen in their radio sitcoms. So I guess the question that I want to ask is what do you think it is about this particular art form that has allowed it to endure for so long when so many other art forms like vaudeville have kind of fallen to the wayside?
I think access to technology has made it popular because anybody can do it if they're willing to put in the time to learn the skills involved. Because if you have a competent set of actors, then it really falls to a good script and you being able to put it together in a good form that's comfortable to listen to with the ear. So with podcasting being so popular in the last 15 years or more, there's more choice out there than there ever has been before. And services like Audible have certainly made it really easy because they sponsor every podcast ever. So it's not hard to find new and good things.
Okay.
I would also say that podcasts don't fall victim to like television. Every single television show has its drawbacks, and not just inaccessibility, but censorship and our aesthetic standards. And with a podcast
and budgets,
you could do something really, really good with a piece of writing, and you don't have to worry about what somebody looks like and if somebody is going to I'm trying to think of a delicate way to explain it, but
age out of the part.
The aesthetics are not as important. What somebody looks like and sounds like are so different that somebody can be any color, any shape, any size, and it doesn't matter because it's that much easier to project yourself as a listener onto a character if you can't see them. So I think it makes it easier to identify with a lot of the characters from podcasts, assuming that they're well written, of course, because you don't have the visual. You get to make up the visual. It's like reading, except you don't have to put all the effort of reading. All you have to do is sit there and absorb.
Okay. Skyblaze, sound like you were about to say something.
Well, the special effects are always better on radio, to misquote a very old phrase. Also, as Kat was saying, problems that you get on the TV, like with the Colin Baker's Doctor Who, one of her favourite complaints is that bloody coat. You don't have to worry about that on the Big Finish audios. You just have to listen to how good his performance is. You're not being distracted by this blinding, multicoloured monstrosity.
But it's so pretty.
No, it looks like one of my migraines. If I ever needed a visual guide to what a migraine is, that. But it's also the democratization of it. Because anybody can do this. If you have the skill to write something and you've got people who have interesting or distinctive voices, then you can create something that's fantastic. You don't have to worry about learning how to do CGI. You don't have to worry about creating sets. You don't have to worry about learning how to do green screen or act or do blocking. All you have to worry about is making sure it sounds okay. And considering that nowadays you've got a whole bunch of things like sound libraries that are available online, even doing sound effects is not that hard compared to producing a full, even an online TV show takes a lot of work, and compared to producing an audio play.
Go ahead.
Oh, sure, sorry.
I was just going to say that it's so much simpler to get a representation on radio because, like you said, there is no end to the diversity of the contributors. So whereas on television, you have to, or in film, you have to cater to certain audiences, and that leads to certain kinds of casting and script elements. It's like with radio or podcasts, you could just do what you want, and it, somebody is going to listen to it because somebody is looking for that.
Yeah,
and so instead of catering to an audience, your audience will find you.
You could be creating this for an audience of 3 people, but that's okay. Because
Yeah,
those 3 people will love the crap
3.
out of it.
And then I was also going to
Hello,
say,
3 people again.
You're the best 3 people ever. So like you were saying, with all the things you don't have to learn, it forces you to fixate on the writing. There's so much television out there that's just garbage. It's visually appealing, and the characters are, one, maybe 2-dimensional, but not a lot of depth in there. And they're putting out content that it's fine, but maybe the writing could be a lot better. I'm looking at you, every CW show ever made. And so podcasts, it's sink or swim. You have to have good writing and good characters, because there are what's going to pull you through. Your sound effects can be a little bit on the mediocre side, and there's a lot of stuff that you can skirt by with, but your story, your actors, and your characters have to just be really good. Like, you have to focus on those things and craft them. And I think that's what I've had so much fun with all all of these podcasts that I've started listening to lately. I've been listening to the White Vault and all the Penumbra podcast shows and the Magnus Archives and the Black Tapes and Limetown. I'm doing it all. And like, the ones that I like the most have the most interesting characters and just really good writing. Anybody can like just write, but to really, really craft a good script and sell that in a story is something that I think a lot of these podcasts out there are just doing uniquely well.
It's also, because of that craft, it becomes a lot more timeless and ageless than a lot of TV is. You can look at any TV show and tell, and pretty much immediately tell what era it's from, because of the styles of clothes, the haircuts, the quality of the video, and so on and so forth. You listen to, Dr. Gonzo was just saying how much he loves this BBC radio version of Hobbit. That's from 1968. That doesn't mean it's not a good story, though. It's like great, wonderfully acted. The excellent acting talent in here. There's people like Peter Williams and Peter Pratt and John Justin in there, who are all really good actors. And that means that it ages much better, because you can't really tell in an instant what time period a voice is from, as opposed to sort of something like Star Trek, the original Star Trek, that has like this very, very 60s feel about it.
I would agree, because among the podcasts that I'm listening to, I've got one that's set on Mars, like 10,000 years from now, and I've got one that's like a fantasy setting, and another one that's like grounded in reality in the North Pole, and like the amount of research that people had to do any of these things, like these genre ones are just really, really fascinating. But then the more grounded in realism ones, everything took an astounding amount of like research and really good writing to sell me on the fact that they might not know everything about these topics. And it does, I think, make it kind of timeless, because you can have a podcast set anywhere, in any time, in any place. And as long as you write it right, you can sell it to an audience without a whole lot of trouble, versus having to go through on a TV show or movie and, try to differentiate your reality from whatever you're trying to portray. It's kind of like the trope of sci-fi series is like technology that looks the same as what we have now, but slightly more futuristic.
Z-Rust.
One of my favorite ideas behind this is, why does every alien planet look like British Columbia? AKA Stargate syndrome.
Right. So it's like you don't have to
or my favorite
about
bugbear, Tatooine syndrome. Why is every alien planet a desert?
a desert or a frozen wasteland and nothing in between.
BBC Quarry, that is all.
So
Kirk's
you don't have
Rock.
to worry about falling into those tropes because you can just walk away from them and do your own thing. And as long as you can write it, you can sell it. And that's just really interesting to me. Like, and again, it's so crazy because I've never been somebody who sits down and listens to podcasts, despite having been podcasting for the last decade. I've never been that interested. In just the last couple of years, I found things that really interest me, and the stories that people are out there creating, to me now are just suddenly very, very interesting. And I'm a few years behind, mind you, but I'm just now getting into it, and I feel like I need to make up for lost time by doing nothing but listening to podcasts.
All right. Well, I guess we know what you're going to be doing over the holiday.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's about all the time that we have for Nerd of the Third Power this week. So just give our final thoughts on this topic. Do you see there being a bright future for radio plays? So Skyblaze, will start with you.
I think it's going to get even easier for people as the technology develops and as the tools to create it get even more available. We've already seen things like microphones and podcast microphones become very, very easy to access for people, and I think that's only going to improve.
All right, Birdman?
Absolutely. As Skyblaze just said, as the technology becomes more affordable, as there's more public domain or free-to-use sound libraries become more easily accessible to people, you can do a lot because the theater of the imagination has an unlimited budget. So you can do a lot of things, and you don't have to cater to demographics. You're not catering to projects by committee. You're literally creating what you want, and hopefully you find that audience through the power of your creation rather than an ad budget. Mind you, it doesn't hurt. But still, yeah. I certainly see podcasts, audio dramas becoming more and more things, or becoming more and more popular as time goes on, and through communities like Reddit and Audible, you're going to find more and more cool projects as they pop up.
Okay, and Kat, yeah, we'll end off with you.
Okay. I think they're going to get more and more popular. I think it's a great thing, especially like everybody else said, the technology is getting easier and more accessible for everybody to use. I think this is going to drive in the direction of young people creating this content. And by that I mean like 40 and under. 30s, people in their 30s and under, because I think we're just a little bit more savvy with computers and staying up with the technology, just as on a general rule. So I think that it is going to be such a nice shift from television and movies where it's, created by executives, like Birdman said, by committee. Instead, we're having individuals of all demographics all across the world coming up with ideas and having the tools and the technology out there in front of them. And I think it's such a great opportunity for young people to get their stories out, and for people of all shapes, sizes, colors, genders. Everybody can get their story or see themselves in characters, because it's so easy now to get your story out there. So I think it's going to do a world of good. I think it will probably take a long time, but I think it might start to just maybe start to not outrank the predominance of television, but it's probably going to end up in the long run doing a better job of creating good material.
Its own niche.
I think it's going to create more fulfilling material, basically. I think, granted, this is an anyone can do it kind of deal, so you have to sift through a lot to find the gems, but when you find those gems, they are so much better than anything that I've seen on television in a long time.
All right. Well, I've got nothing to add to that, so Well, I've got nothing to add to that. So that's all the time that we have for Nerd of the Third Power this week. Thank you as always for listening in. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. As always, I'm Dr. Gonzo.
I'm the Cat.
I'm Skyblaze.
I'm still drinking out of the fish tank.
We needed to have a talk about your off mic behavior here, Mike. We'll see you guys later. Taka, play us out.